as well. Oh, she is there. We got it. All right. So we have put together a wonderful group of panelists that are going to speaks to some of these navigating barriers. It seems that when I go out and I talk with students, there's always something that they tell me that says, I'm not going to be able to do that because I don't have the funds to go to school. I don't have the, there's something that's happened in my life that's standing in my way from me getting to where I want to be. But what makes us successful is how we figure out how to go around those barriers. And I've got this great, inspiring group of panelists that are going to talk to that point today. So Tamika Ellington, who is the founder and CEO of the First Generation Revolutionaries. We've got James Schleicher, who is the local business manager and author. Nick Oliverio, a senior energy strategist. Kaz Finley, Federal Reserve Bank, and Sean Button, who is from Sisters of Charity Foundation in the Cleveland Central Promise neighborhood. Those 5 people that we have are going to be our panel, and I'm going to ask them each, and I'm going to start with, and make sure we can hear everybody and see everybody. So I'm going to stop my share. And I don't know, I want to make sure that as we speak, that the speaker view gets recorded. And so let's start with Tamika, if you want to tell us a little bit about, and is she able to be seen? Yes, there she is. Welcome, Tamika. Thank you for being here. Go ahead and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your current experience. And we'll go down the line and have everyone introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their current position. And then we'll come back and talk about the thing that got in our way and we've had to navigate around. So go ahead, Tamika, and welcome.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Tamika Ellington, and I am a former academic. I was a college professor for about 15 years or so, and I also served as a college administrator, assistant dean for the College of the Arts. I'm sorry, I'm getting some feedback. Can everybody mute if possible? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm a former college professor and college administrator at Kent State University. I served for about 15 years as a professor for the School of Fashion, and then served as college assistant dean for the College of the Arts. And I'm a newly turned entrepreneur and empowerment speaker and professional development strategist. So I, as of August this past year, decided that it was time for me to take my passion and turn it into something that I, committed to full time. And that's what I'm doing now.
Myself. Thank you very much, Dr. Tamika. Would James go ahead and introduce yourself, and we're probably going to have to mute and unmute, and hopefully that feedback will be controlled. So James, go ahead and introduce.
Hey everybody, James Schleicher, and so Tamika, very excited for you. I think that's going to be a message throughout mine, is just doing your passion full time. I wrote a book called "It All Starts with a Plan," kind of based on the whole fact of you can fail your way to success. So you'll hear me talk a lot about failure. Couldn't find a job out of college, was living in my grandma's basement, and knew nothing about business, knew nothing about the industry I was in. So I guess I would say I was at the bottom of the industry. In the last 9 years, I've been ranked top 6% in the world of my industry, which has been cool. I've been able to build a team that is at that rank as well. So if you see IBB anywhere on the other side, stands for I've been burned. So just my passion is helping people not get taken advantage of in my industry like my family was. Again, I didn't know we were getting taken advantage of, just kind of was forced in my industry because I couldn't find a job, but it was the best barrier ever. So I got.
Thank you, James. And Nick Oliverio from Senior Energy Strategist.
Well, thank you everyone so much. It's an honor and a privilege to even be a part of this panel. Seeing everybody's speeches beforehand, it's like, I don't even know why I'm here. It's total imposter syndrome, because I don't even look at myself as being like successful or even deserving of here. But I thank you, for allowing me to be here. I basically, to give a quick and dirty kind of career, it was very similar. Like I'm sure you'll find a lot of similarities between everybody's stories, as far as essentially failing forward until you finally reach some sort of success, whatever that success is for you. But basically, I came from a family where we didn't have a lot of money. One of the things I loved, Chappelle actually in one of his specials said, like, we didn't grow up poor because poor is a mentality and it can never be changed. We're broke, so we just don't have a lot of money. So I would never insult my parents and tell them like that I grew up poor by any means, because we were filthy rich as far as love and support and everything like that. But I basically started off at 13, caddying at a local country club, because I wanted some money, and I immediately thought, these people are obviously doing something right, so they have something for me to learn. Yeah, I liked golf and stuff like that, so that was cool. I got to play there on Mondays for free, so that was my main perk. But I quickly learned it was okay. I have doctors, I have business professionals, I have senators. I was caddying for celebrities, like you name it. And this is at like 13, 14, 15. So I actually caddied all through high school. Actually got a member that I used to caddy for was starting a forklift company and was like, hey, I want you to kind of run the warehouse and stuff. So as soon as I graduated high school, I didn't go to college. I was like, you know what, I'm going to become a businessman. And basically I worked in the warehouse and got covered in hydraulic fluid and battery acid from the charging batteries, and came home filthy dirty and grease and everything like that every day. And eventually on my 21st birthday, my parents were like, Nick, like, do you ever want to go to school? And I was like, well, I'm like, maybe. And they're kind of like, listen, like, if you're not going to go to college, like, you have to go to college now or you're never going to go. And I was like, okay, you know what? At 21, thank God I waited that long, because I would have wasted money. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So very similar to actually Zach's story. I went to Kent State and I started taking kind of classes that I knew I needed to improve my skills. So I didn't come from money. So I started taking some finance classes. I worked for that forklift company was a startup. So I was like, okay, I should take some business classes too. And then one of my managers was fantastic, and just kind of watching how his style was. So I actually, I think they changed the major now, but it used to be called Applied Conflict Management. And it was basically how to manage people. So I actually triple majored in those, where I figured I needed to know all three to really be successful in whatever I did. It didn't matter the industry. So I really took that kind of perspective as I need to improve myself versus like try to like check boxes per se or get one particular degree. And I ended up with just a general studies degree because I ran out of money, honestly. So it was like going into my 5th year. I was paying for college myself, and I was like, I went to my guidance counselor. I was like, hey, how do I get out of here, with something? And they're like, well, you've kind of been taking all 3 degrees. And so I basically graduated, just general studies, nothing crazy. I actually worked with James in the finance industry, and we'll get to how support each other with their business endeavors. I have my logo here, but I wore James's logo because that's what it's all about, is networking and sharing positivity. But so I actually worked in finance for a few years and loved the gig. I got to work closely with James, and he was a huge influence to me. Then I kind of, for me personally, I started actually working from, rather than individual finance, I started working with more companies, and I found the passion where there's so many American businesses doing so many cool things. It was unbelievable. So I kind of realized, okay, like I want to start working with companies more. And a client through finance was like, hey, I do commercial energy brokering. You should get into this. and blah, blah, blah. And I learned that the cost of energy for most manufacturing companies is second only to labor. So it's pretty important. And nobody really talks about energy. So I was like, oh, okay. And I was just getting married. My wife was like, listen, you have a, you're a financial advisor, you have a, a comfortable, life. Why would you change careers? And I was like, I think this is really cool. I get to meet a bunch of people doing stuff. And so I took that risk. It's been 7 years so far in that industry. And in October, I actually was lucky enough to move to a company where just the 8 of us, they basically kind of drafted, I hate even saying it because it sounds braggadocious, but they basically grabbed 8 people from around the country, and we sort of formed like an all-star team where just the 8 of us are in the top 20 consulting firms in the country, and there's firms that have hundreds of people. So it was an honor and privilege to join them. And here I am, really. So thank you all for everything. It's an honor and a privilege.
Thank you. You guys are getting me so excited. I keep thinking about, as we're going through this process of our panel, and what I hope that our students are hearing is that opportunity doesn't come knocking at your door and says, let me in, I have something for you. You have to go out and seek that opportunity and be able and willing to do the work involved. And I think so far I'm hearing such wonderful things from you all. And I'm going to have Kaz Finley from Federal Reserve Bank give his introduction of his, where his current position is right now. Welcome, Kaz.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Just a little background on myself. I, too, like everybody that just spoke, took a non-traditional path to where I am. And it's a wacky, zigzaggy path, as I just mentioned. I'm in a room now with economists and people who control the economy for our country, and I have no background, and I didn't have any knowledge of that prior to joining, the Fed. But I run their economic education department. So I do all the outreach. Our team does all the outreach throughout all of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and some of Kentucky. I give you that end story to say, when I was in high school, the last thing I wanted to do was become an educator. My mom is a teacher. My aunts are teachers. My godparents are teachers. I hated the thought of becoming a teacher, and I was a headache of a student. So I was like, man, I would never want to teach a kid like myself. I'm never going into education. I got to college, and I didn't know what I wanted to do other than be a DJ. So I was like, I'm going into communications. I'm majoring in communications. Now, you guys are from this area. I'm old, so I'll just give my age. And when Z1079 first got here, I got an internship there. It was the first year there, so I was like rubbing my hands together, like, yeah, ground floor, I'm here. And all of the DJs I shadowed, carried crates for, went to parties with, they said, you're in college? I'm like, yeah. It was like, you want to see my check stub? And as every single one of them showed me their check stub. And it was almost like they scripted it, but they didn't even know the other one did it. I saw how little they made, and it derailed my whole future. Because I was just like, there's no way you could, I'm not doing this for this little bit of money. It was so much work, and they didn't make anything. So I went back to school, and I'm just like, I'm lost. I don't know what I want to do. And I started taking education courses, and I was like, dang, I got roped into this world. And I took some time off because I really didn't want to go into education. But my parents, that good foundation, if you have a good foundation at home, people are going to be supportive. My parents told me, look, you need to evaluate your options. And my mom was like, you may as well just become a teacher's aide to see if you even like being around kids, being in that environment. So I started to I was a teacher's aide in the district I grew up in, which is where she taught too. But I didn't work in her school because that would have never worked. But I worked in the district I grew up in, so I knew all the people. I was popular in high school, so I knew all the teachers. I was cool. And what I found is I had a real connection to students and knowing what they needed, because like I said, I was a headache kid. So I was like, no, you need to teach it this way. He's not paying attention because of this. I could put the dots together really quick because I was one of the kids they couldn't reach really well and who they had issues with connecting with. I wasn't a delinquent or anything, but I get bored in class. Um, so then I'm like, wow, actually have a skill. And then kids, by not being a lot of men and men of color, kids used to just swarm me, and I never got a chance to breathe when I was at work. So then I started to evaluate it like, wow, I really could excel at this, but I don't want to be a teacher because they have to fill out too much work. Paperwork, and the testing standards came into play. And I was like, screw that, I'm not doing that. So I got my bachelor's in educational studies, which gave me an opportunity to work in schools and create programs. So I started to write a lot of programs for different districts, starting with the district I was in initially, for positive behavior intervention and just programs around young men, young ladies, student councils. I used to run all these programs and build them up within different districts, and found I had a knack for it. So I started to read more in depth about how I could leverage that and build upon that to not only share with students, but hey, these adults aren't anything but grown-up kids. I could probably show them one thing or two as well. So I started to do a lot of professional developments for the staff in the buildings where I was. And I was a younger person, so I was sometimes intimidated. I was like, oh, these people have been teaching for 25 years. Some of them were my teachers. They may not listen to me, but after they walked away from some of my training sessions, they were like, I needed this. You don't know how much I needed this. I never thought about it in that perspective. So from there, that's when I started to really look at it like, okay, this is my knack. I know how to connect with people, not just students. Um, and I went back to school again for my master's, which is in industrial and organizational psychology, which sounds wacky, but it's really studying people and organizations and digging in deep, and really learning how organizations function and learning how to teach them how to work more effectively. I mean, of course, there's a lot of pushback from, when you get to senior level and C-suite level people, they may not be as approachable or encouraging when you come away telling them they're doing something wrong. But that career path really interests me, and that's where I've really been leveraging my skills as of late. So I've been creating a lot of college career path programming, building pipeline. At my current job, building a college career pipeline from K through university, trying to get kids interested in a variety of career paths, not just here at my job, but everywhere in different career fields, trying to expose them to what Ms. Harker is trying to expose you to, the variety of career paths that you can select from moving forward as you move forward as students into your post-secondary lives. So that's just a little brief introduction of where I am.
Thank you, Kaz. I appreciate that information. I love that our panel is a product of both college bound and non-traditional pathways, because I think students need to see all aspects. We're going to go now to Rashawn Button, who's from, and am I pronouncing that, but is it Baton or Bunton? Thank you. But Bunton, Sisters of Charity Foundation of Cleveland in the Cleveland Central Promise neighborhood. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're currently doing.
Thank you. It seems as if I have so many commonalities with so many different people who's been a part of this series today. I am a twin. I have a twin like Zach. Her name is Rochelle. And just the journey on to life, right? See, Cass has a twin. Cass, you're a twin too. Go figure.
Oh my gosh. Okay? We're on a wavelength today.
So, okay, Cass, so you'll kind of like this. I'm a twin who had a set of twins, so it can happen. You know, they tell us that it skips a generation, but it doesn't skip a generation all the time. So I have a set of 3-year-old twin girls at home. Right, right. And so growing up, it was expected for us to go to college. I grew up in a single parent home with my grandmother and my mom, and that was our staple, right? And it was expected of us to go to school. My sister and I, it was just ingrained to us, like there was no option. Oh, you know, it was just a casual conversation, something that we talked about in the home. My mom, who was a radiology technician, she had a hopes and dreams. She always wanted to be an English teacher, right? So my sister and I felt the brunt of her desire of wanting to be an English teacher. So whenever homework came home, she would always say, let me check it. Give me your paper. And she had this pen and she'll just have a way of going through it. Or, you know, when we were in the home, she'll always say, don't talk slang to me. You know, like let's have a real conversation. Let me see your other words that you can use. So we had an expectation that college was for us. We were in the honors program in school, and not to say that we were angelic students or we had straight A's. We were very good students. We were very good students because my mother had high expectations of us. My mother, my grandmother, and our family members had high expectations of us. And you'll see me moving for a moment. I apologize about that. But at the end of the day, when it came time for graduation, what college were we going to? I had the opportunity to be afforded a full scholarship to Shaw University, which is a HBCU, a historically black college and university in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I went. And when I got there, the obstacle came where I found out I was going to be a mother. And boy, did that throw a wrench in my mother's plans for me. And it had me readjust my expectations of myself to say, you know, Sean, you're on this college, you're on this college campus, you're hundreds of miles away from home, and you have the opportunity to go to school for free. But my heart told me I'm supposed to be a mom. And this is where I'm supposed to do. And I told my mother, this isn't the end for me. This isn't the end for me. So she said, well, how you going to figure it out? What you going to do? So I told her, I'm going to move back home. And she said, you're going to leave your scholarship? I said, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to figure it out. Came home, went to Cleveland State, and boy, did I find myself. I found myself as a student. I found my stride as a mother, and I was able to thrive. Now, fast forward, my son now is 22. My oldest son is 22, preparing to graduate from college. And so much of our journey together has prepared me for the work and the woman that I am today, because I get afforded the opportunity to work with community members who are experiencing life, who feel like life has thrown them some obstacles, but they still feel vibrant about their future, right? And they say, well, it's not for me, Rashawn, like this isn't my life path. I haven't seen these things happen, but as long as you can feel it in your soul, your spirit, I'm thinking about Living Your Legend, right? I just revisited the book, The Alchemist, and it talks about someone who's on their journey of living their legend, living what their soul speaks for them to do, which everyone on this panel is doing as an entrepreneur, right? You're living out your passion. You get to live out your passion. And it's that little voice within you that just keeps whispering, like, keep going. When people tell you to stop, keep going. When things come in the way as a roadblocks or obstacles or perceived roadblocks and obstacles, that little voice in you that tells you to keep going. I get to be that outside voice that supports that to so many people who feel like life has not been set up for their success. And I get to do that by way of blending my professional skill set, because I'm a trained licensed social worker, right? You would expect that, right? From the way that I'm talking, right? But I get to blend that with my professional skill set and my spiritual path. And I get to do that in a very non-judgmental, in a very welcoming, supportive way to individuals who live in deep poverty. Like Cleveland Central Promise neighborhood is a neighborhood that has been riddled with violence, that has been a big part of structural racism, redlining, where families are making a way for themselves in one part of the neighborhood, but then there's another part of the neighborhood that is thriving, homeowners, business owners. And so finding that blend of the two, I get the opportunity to support that and be a bridge for those who want to experience more. So it's almost like I get to live my legend every day. You'll see me like up and down because today I'm in a studio here in a central neighborhood, WOVU BBC Community Radio, because I get to do a show every Sunday called Joyful Journeys that talks about finding the joy in living despite the obstacles that we may be facing. So I here again see so many themes that we share as entrepreneurs or people who took the long route or a different route, because long route could be Dr. Ellington, to get a doctorate degree, that takes some years, some time, some commitment. And Nick, you were talking about the years and time and commitment, that it took. And our previous panelists talked about that. So taking those different routes and knowing what's for you by listening to that little voice within that says, keep going, keep going. So I get to be that outside voice again, like I said, to champion that inside voice within.
Well, thank you, Rashawn. That is a powerful message. And I hate to, like, as we are going through this, I thought, we'll do this and tell about yourself, tell about the barrier that got in your way and then what skill set got you out of it. But it's hard to separate that, right? Because it's all a part of your journey, and trying to tell a piece without the whole thing is really hard to separate. So with our 3 questions I've asked, some of you have already blended them together, and that's wonderful because the message is well received. But what I'm going to go back through now, what I want to ask then is, Nathan, just to remind your audience, name what the barrier was that you navigated around, the skill sets and advice that you have to students. So going through that process, if you haven't answered that question yet, go ahead, and I'll start with Dr. Tamika Ellington, and she can start with your barrier, what got you around it, and what advice or skill sets do you think our students need in order to get themselves out of a bind when they encounter it, or if they're in one now?
So my story, I didn't get a chance to really get involved and tell you all a little bit more about me, but I'm a first generation student. I'm the first person in my family to go to college, and like Miss Rashawn was talking about how, college was something that was talked about in her family, and it was not an option. It was something that was expected. For me, it was a total opposite. What was expected of me was to graduate from high school, because not only am I a first generation college graduate, but I'm also first generation high school graduate. So the whole idea of going to school and going to college was something that was so out of the scope of what my family was normally used to. I was kind of like the odd person in my family. And I'm still, unfortunately, the only person in my family to get a college degree. My brother and my sister never did get their college degree. And so it was, since then, I knew from a young age that I wanted to do something different than what I saw around me. I grew up in Cleveland. I grew up in the inner city of Cleveland, right on 105th and St. Clair. I went to Glenville High School, and there was violence all around, drugs and everything. I come from an alcoholic family. My dad was on drugs. He spent several years in prison. And I just knew I wanted a different life. The kind of lifestyle that I saw around me was not something that I was hoping for. I was hoping that I could find a way to live in a different way. And to live in a way where I could have other opportunities and my children could have other opportunities, because I felt like, growing up in the inner city, there was a lot of things that I missed out on. I mean, small things such as my high school didn't have a drama club. Okay. There were certain parts of the arts that were just not available in my school. I'm an artist. My background is actually in fashion design. So the first part of my career, I actually spent in the fashion industry as a designer. But, things like, being able to have art and theater and things like that, I didn't get a chance to experience those things because our school didn't have the budget for that kind of stuff, And so I really wanted my kids to be able to grow up in a space where they could have those experiences. And that's, as a mom, that's something that I've always wanted to do, is to try to give my kids experiences that I never got to do. But after I went off and worked in the fashion industry, I decided that, just making product was not enough for me. I felt like I needed to have more of an impact on the universe. I was making all this cool product, but I wasn't really impacting anybody, and I decided that maybe teaching was my calling. Maybe I should become a fashion professor. And I started teaching at Kent State, started there part-time while I was getting my PhD. And I started working towards what I thought my calling would be. And luckily, I just so happened to be right, because teaching was something that was amazing. I loved being a teacher. Loved being a professor. Let me just say, loved that work. And I actually became the very first Black professor ever at the School of Fashion. And getting into that role was not easy. There was a lot of difficulty involved in that. And that was a barrier that I had, being the first Black professor. I was in a space where, unfortunately, and I'm just going to be truthful because I'm sure the students need to hear the truth. But for me, I ended up having to file an affirmative action case against the School of Fashion at Kent State in order for me to get the job, because I had applied for a position there on 3 different occasions. And every time I got denied 3 times. Those 3 times that I applied, I got denied all 3. And I started realizing that the people that they were hiring instead of me were people who had less education than I did, and people who were white women. And once I realized what was going on, I did that affirmative action complaint, and I magically got a job. And so that's how I became the first Black professor ever at the School of Fashion. That was a major barrier. Going into that profession in the way in which I did left a lot of stress, and that imposter syndrome. Somebody mentioned imposter syndrome, right? So I had a lot of imposter syndrome because I felt like already my colleagues didn't really feel like I deserved to be in that space. I knew that I was talented enough. I knew that I was, qualified enough, but, I allowed myself to listen to the voices of other people telling me that I didn't deserve that space. And so I would say to the young people, one of the things that you need to have, one of the skills that you truly, truly need to have in order to be successful, is to get to a point in your life where you have so much self-confidence that you really don't care what other people think about you. And that was something that was really, really important for me. I had to get to a point in my career where I didn't care about what my colleagues thought. And once I got to that point, I just became free. And that allowed me the space to just be great and just to do the things that I wanted to do and to be excellent and not worry about what my colleagues might say, or whether they were judging me because of X, Y, and Z. So if you can get to a point where you have a confidence that is so great that other people's perceptions don't matter, and you can just be who you authentically are in all your excellence, please do that. And that's really what changed my life, is being able to get to a point where I really didn't care what other people thought. So
And that takes a lot of effort. And I still have to work on that every day, because it's a hard thing to make your voice be the loudest voice in your head.
Absolutely.
And so thank you for that. That was very moving. I'm going to now jump back to James. And if you want to talk a little bit about what advice you have for students that have a barrier in front of them and what skill set they might need to pull.
Yeah, so for me, the barrier that I find, if I look back on my life and I look even at my own situation, I think that most people, you know what your barrier is, and 99% of the time it's yourself. It's your own it's your own doubts, it's your own fears, it's your own limiting beliefs. So what I would say is just hopefully everybody on this panel, we're just giving you an opportunity to see that if you stop doubting yourself, you can achieve anything. You stop letting other people get in your head of what you should do. I always tell people we work with, eliminate the word should from your vocabulary, because everybody's going to tell you, well, you should do this, you should do that, and no matter what you do in life, it's never going to be good enough for somebody else. So you got to make sure that it's good enough for you. And I think with the barrier, I was trying to figure out like what was the barrier. But the biggest thing I find in my life is my barrier was letting other people kind of guide my decisions and not really taking full ownership of that. And I had a double major, double minor in college and couldn't find a job. And it was very, very disheartening. I was president of student government. I was editor on the newspaper. I graduated with honors. There's a whole bunch of awards I got, blah, blah, blah. I thought my resume was the thing that when I graduated that, employers would be waiting, on the stage of graduation for me to, get my degree. And then, here's your $100,000 salary. Now you're gonna be a manager, leader of people, blah, blah. It just, I kind of bought into my own lie that if I just did really well in school and I just built my resume, that everything else would work out. And I think that if you can take this opportunity to understand that it is important to do well in the classroom, it is important to build your resume, but you have to, just like everybody on this panel, you're going to reach a point in life where it's like you have to take your own life into your own hands. You have to take your destiny into your own hands. And for me, that was finally from being in a position not being able to find a job and living in my grandma's basement, just like, hey, I got to do something. So I think for me, it was just, it was the number one thing was finally taking action. The skills that I would say, there's, first off, every skill matters, every bit matters, but the things that have spoke to me and have worked for me is, you have to take action. Action is the best medicine. Even if you don't know exactly what to do, you have to do something. So taking action is your first step. You don't think like taking action is a skill. Most people in life, they don't achieve what they want out of life because they're too scared to do it. They're too afraid to fail. And I will assure you, I don't like failing, but I'm the best at it. I'm the best in the world at what I do because I've failed the most. And I take pride in learning from my failures. And I was looking at today, LeBron has missed 13,116 shots as of today. So think of it as you have to embrace the fact that if you want to be the best, if you want to be the expert of what you do, if you want to stand out in life and in your field, you have to be ready to fail 13,000 times and be ready to fail 13,000 more and look forward to it. The other skill, so take action, fail quickly, learn from it. Second skill I would say is focusing on your strength. I suck at most things in life. My wife will tell you I am not good at 99.9% of life. I'm really good at what I do. So if you are like me, you have to know thyself, know yourself, where if you are good at something, you're passionate about something, and you believe in something, you need to go all in. You need to obsess. I think that if you really want a true life skill, like you have to obsess and be obsessed and consumed with it. And so become the expert, and which is going to lead me. And the thing I want to leave you with is whatever you do, you will be the best in the world at it. You will be happy at it. Everybody on this panel, everybody spoke today, what they're doing is they're solving other people's problems. They are tearing down other people's barriers. So our goal today, obviously on this panel, is to hopefully tear down any of the barriers you see in your way by hopefully hitting home on something. But if you can solve other people's problems, you'll begin to solve every one of your own. So I hope this helps, but this is, I think that for me, it is my own mind has always gotten in the way, and it's overcoming it every day.
Thank you, James. I know when we get to Nick, I want to kind of carry on that same conversation about, because we had some side conversation yesterday about the social capital and how important that relationship building is. So Nick, if you would, while we're going to move to Rashawn real quick, but I want to come back to you, Nick. Rashawn has to jump off, and she just wanted to give some final remarks before she has to jump off. So we're going to jump over to her and back to Nick, but think about that social capital and networking that we talked about yesterday, Nick.
Thank you so much, Amy. And this is a wonderful opportunity to be a part of. So thank you for reaching out to me. And it's such a pleasure and honor to be in this virtual space with so many diverse people who are continuing on their journey of failure and success, right? Because through that failure, we gain knowledge and we get to apply it as wisdom to support our success. If one thing I would say to support is mental fortitude. You have to have mental fortitude, that ability to keep your mind going, that stamina to be able to think and process through those things. With mental fortitude, you'll be able to strengthen your emotional capacity to be able to be resilient through those losses, to have that voice not be so small, but to be echo louder and to be resonant within your life, to be able to keep going no matter what your path is that you choose to take, that your journey doesn't end just because you've experienced a roadblock. So I think that mental fortitude, I like to leave with mental fortitude. And thank you all for allowing me to be in such a dynamic space. Good luck to all the students that are in this space, all the educators that are supporting the students in this space as they embark on choosing how they want to live their life legend. So thank you all and have a great day.
Thank you, Rashawn. Appreciate you being here today. So inspiring. I love that. You can do it.
You can do it.
All right. Thank you. All right, Nick, we're going to hop back over to you. And if you would carry on that conversation about social capital and network building as the skill set that we talked about yesterday.
Sure, absolutely. So, well, real quick, obviously, I do want to definitely piggyback off of what Rashawn said and Dr. Ellington, where the confidence is so huge. And I think at the end of the day, no matter what, your only barriers that you're going to put up are the ones that you're putting up yourself. And it's such a corny, I heard the quote somewhere, but it was like, the only thing standing in between you and your success is like the BS story that you tell yourself. And I think that's so true. And to Dr. Ellington's point, where I've failed so many times that I have such a confidence that I'll never go back to my former life. I will make it in whatever I do. It doesn't matter. Tomorrow I can start a landscaping business and I'll be the best landscaper and I'll put some better lines down than Zach did, but it's like, no matter what. So there is this confidence where I don't have to worry about anything, because whatever I do, I'm going to put 100% to it. And that's almost like it's like the cloud, like leaving you once you can kind of come to grips with that. But to talk about like the social, I guess like the networking part of it really, where, I'm rocking James's, kind of logo here, because, I could rock my own, but why not rock his? And he's been a very influential person and just helping to navigate. And I know like what we were talking about originally is one of the big things that was so valuable for me is when I was caddying, I had to, at 14, 15, 16, figure out how to tell, Mr. VP or president, hey, you know what? You were actually wrong. You missed that putt because you didn't hit it where I told you to hit it. And that person, that president of the company or whoever, typically doesn't ever have that person in their life that tells them that they're wrong. ever, like ever. So hearing like some 14-year-old, they're like, who are you to tell me that I'm wrong? So I really had to learn people and how to kind of manage people. And what was really nice is through all of that, I developed different friendships. I think what we were talking about, I know James and I were talking about this before too, is one tip of advice would be to try to find somebody, try to find a genuine friend that's decades and below you. Like I'm 35 and I genuinely have friends that are 45, 55, 65 that I can call right now and literally it's just, hey, how's your day going? Because that offers perspective. And I know that's what we were talking about, Amy, too, is gaining perspective. And what my view might be on a topic, somebody who's 55 might have a completely different set of experience and wisdom, and same with 65, and then same down to 25, where it's like, hey, I might be the dinosaur in the room, especially with you students. I'm sure even trying to talk about how I go on the internet compared to you guys, it's probably completely night and day. So I think gaining that perspective and really being able to have those outside influences of all different levels and everything like that, that's just so key, because that really makes you a well-rounded person. And I'm confident that I could go into any business or meet with any of you. We could all go out to lunch and have a great time, just sharing stories. So I don't think, I almost hate using barriers a little bit, because a lot of the barriers, I put up myself, or people falsely put up, for themselves, or make excuses where it's kind of like everybody can do everything. And it sounds so corny, but it's like, you can literally do anything that you put your mind to it. And that's really it. I don't know how to even put it more clearly cut than that, really.
I appreciate that. That's very, very clear, Nick. Thank you so much. I think that persistence, mindset are two of the greatest things that we can come by. Thank you for those sharing. Again, we have another panelist that has to hop off. You can see that these people are so super busy that they squeezed us in their schedule today, but I want to make sure Dr. Tamika Ellington has a chance to say goodbye before the panel closes. So I'm going to turn it over to Tamika and then come back to Kaz for some final remarks as well.
Thank you all for having me on. It's a pleasure to meet you, Amy, and it's a pleasure to meet you all as well. But one of the last question on the list was asking about people that helped me through the way. And one thing that I will say to the young people, that it's so important that you have mentors in your life. I couldn't just select one person who had an impact on me. All of my mentors had an amazing impact on me. And even as a 45-year-old woman, I still have several mentors in my life that impact me and that help me grow. So the last thing that I will leave you with is, you really can't grow if you don't have somebody to show you the road to go. You really have to have somebody to show you how to get there and to be an example for you. And your mentors don't necessarily have to be from the same discipline as you. They can come from a variety of disciplines. And one thing that I also learned was not to think that there's only a one guru mentor. You have to have an executive board of mentors, people that can give you different things, because not one person will be able to give you everything. So young people, have an executive board of mentors that can give you the support and the love that you need to be able to do whatever it is you want to accomplish in this life. And so thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you for inspiring us.
You're welcome. Have a good day, everybody.
You too. And Kaz, if you would like to wrap us up on our panel today and give the final remarks of any advice that you might have to students or things that they should work on as we're going around and trying to figure out how to navigate around these barriers that we might have in our life.
Sure. I'm going to add on to everything that all the panelists just said, really. But one thing I like to add is, as you gain your skills and start to navigate, learn yourself, build your network, gather your mentors, all that comes together, and you have to start to know that you're the asset as well. So you have to know that when you're bringing yourself to the table, you're not just looking for people to put you in position. You're not just looking for people to move you into places, but you have to know that this is what I'm bringing to the table, and you have to know what what your worth is. I mean, I know it's cliche, but you have to know that I'm worth this. You do see a lot of empowerment now in employees throughout really the United States, where they're moving around, hopping from place to place, and it's because they know their qualifications now. They know where they're needed, and they know their assets. So when you look at the landscape of the world, and especially you guys, because the skills that you guys are going to be gaining, they're going to supersede Nick and I as we're old. I mean, and you guys will have the skills to surpass us. We'll be looking for you guys to come work with us, to give us your knowledge. But you have to know and be confident enough in yourself to say, hey, I am an asset. I don't have to sit here and wait. I actually have to, make my opportunity really, really happen. Even for myself, barriers are always presented in my space. And I've come to a point in my career where I know I'm the asset, because instead of me looking for work, people are coming to me and asking me as the expert. So now it's a point of, I may have outgrown what I'm doing. So now it's time to look for the next opportunity or look for the next, challenge, because I'm not challenged anymore. So I'm happy that I was on this call with all these entrepreneurs, because I already know that's where my heart is anyway, because I know that's where my next step is, and continue to help other people grow and other people get the skills that I have and gain that confidence. That's the next step for me. So you'll never stop learning it as you continue to grow as a professional. Nick will speak to that as well. I mean, you continue to grow throughout your life. You find these opportunities and you keep going towards them, and just make yourself know internally, it's intrinsic. You got to know that you're the asset, and nobody can take that away from you.
Well, thank you, Kaz. And I so appreciate every panel member here and the wisdom that you've shared, and the fact that as we go forward, when I'm on a call, like a Zoom meeting, or I'm at a conference, or I'm in a meeting with people, and there's somebody that I meet that I think is so interesting, what would I do? I would reach out to them after. I would email them. I would connect with them. I can't tell you how many people that I've done that with, and I've created a network of people that I can go to when there's a problem, or when I have presentations I have to do, and I know I need their knowledge, because I'm not an expert in everything, but I know these people are. And that's how that word networking happens. You make a connection, you get contact information, you reach out to them after and say, hey, could you help me with this? Or couldn't you give me a piece of advice on that? So always keep that in mind as you are growing